Welcome to the program. No music bumps today, but who really needs them when you think about it? Not me. A little bit of technical issues, but we have a monstrous show lined up on the program today. Dane Bradshaw is going to join us just a little bit later. Should Tennessee have let Nico Iamaleava walk after he asked for more money in the offseason? Tennessee's coaching contracts, three key coaches nearing the end of an expiring contract. Could the Vols make some coaching changes? Don't be shocked after the last signing day in February. Sounds hardcore, but you want to make sure that you get all you can out of the guys you've got. This day in Tennessee sports history, will the Vols miss Deion Sampson or their missing offensive linemen? More. We know Cooper Mays, Javonte Spraggins are gone. Should the Vols be concerned or excited about so many of the 2025 SEC foes having new quarterbacks? Stat of the day as well. Also, Deion might be cruising on. So, Tennessee has an opportunity to poach some Colorado guys. We'll talk college football television rankings. A lot going on. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I am good. I think I'm finally on the back end of a 2-week horrible cold and sickness I had that I couldn't shake forever. But I think I'm okay.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So let's go ahead and dive into it right now. We'll have Dane Bradshaw coming up next. But the first question I want to ask you, we now know that Nico Iamaleava, he asked for more money. He's getting more money to be a Vol. We don't know how much more money, but it is money that could have been spent elsewhere. Should Tennessee have let Nico Iamaleava walk? Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. What say you, Caleb Calhoun? Let's assume it was a significant amount of money, because I don't think that Nico, and I'm told it's his family, not him, I don't think they would have gone to get an extra couple of $100, but they got some more cash that could have been better spent elsewhere. They could have let him walk. Your thoughts? Would you have considered that given his play last year and the fact that he's already Tennessee's highest paid player at over $2 million annually?
With the principle of I'm typically team let quarterbacks walk. I'm the guy who said the Ravens never should have given Joe Flacco that contract he asked for after he won the Super Bowl, by the way. So, and I think I was proven right on that. I'm going to violate my own principle on that and say, no, they should have done what they can to keep him for this reason. There is way too much pub over the fact that Tennessee football went to war with the NCAA over Nico. They basically publicized that they paid him $2 million a year. They have Josh Heupel staked his whole future on the success of Nico Iamaleava. If he walks, I don't think that's just the first thing that hurts your team at that point. I think you end up dealing with a ton of transfers, recruits looking elsewhere, because if this guy walks, the guy you staked your whole program around, the entire future of your program around, then all of a sudden, I think a lot of other people would start raising red flags, and maybe a lot of recruits would start raising red flags and say, I don't know if I want to be part of this program. Now, maybe it's different because in the NIL age, maybe people don't think that much about walking anymore. But I think it would have looked too bad for Tennessee.
I agree. This is not your average guy like a Squirrel White going somewhere or an Amari Jefferson going somewhere. This is a guy that's your linchpin of the university. So the one way that I would have let him walk and had no problem with it whatsoever, Caleb, is if I thought he was in some ways a cancer or a bad vibe in the locker room because he wasn't happy with his money. That would have been an issue with me. But everything I've been led to believe is that this was a family thing and he's an incredible teammate. So there's a big difference between parents and agents doing what they do, looking out for their kid, and then there's something else if you've got a disgruntled player. Probably part of the reason you and I see Juwan Jennings a little bit different, but I don't think Nico is disgruntled. I don't think he's happy with the way that Tennessee utilized him and ran their offense last year. But I will say this, You're absolutely right. He was the face of NIL. To lose him would have been an absolute monstrous loss.
Yes, and we also have to talk credibility of people, by the way, too. Even though there are some red flags we raised about Josh Heupel, he still at least has enough cachet to say if there's a disgruntled player, then you let him walk. The reason I was the way I was with Juwan Jennings was I was so fed up with covering Butch Jones. I thought, you know what, if you're disgruntled with Butch Jones, and I'm totally on your side in that moment. So it's a little bit of a different scenario. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, and if you let him walk, there's just no way around it. Now, from a purely football perspective, divvying up NIL funds, like if it's the NFL, Dave, okay, I would say maybe let him walk because it's a bit of a different situation. Because I don't think he's worthy of the NIL money he's commanding, and you could find a decent enough quarterback and put enough talent around him with the rest of the NIL money. But I think if you're Tennessee and you're thinking about, you got to think about the politics and the optics of building your program. I mean, I think you would agree with me on this, Dave, right? Optics matter a heck of a lot more in college football than they do in NFL. Optics don't matter at all in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think college football will fall in line with that. In other words, if a parent or agent calls, you have some dealings with them, but you're not going to have continual dealings. And I've been around players that parents have done this, of calling every week saying, oh, this is not the way to utilize my son. This is a problem, this, that, and whatever. And Caleb, that's just not something you can tolerate. So players have more leverage now. It used to be they were tied to a scholarship that was going to keep them in place. And if they left, they had to sit out a year, maybe pay their own way. I do think that you have to have someone now on your staff, on your coaching staff, that can deal with these sorts of things. So not a coach, but how you have an analytics guy. You need a guy that is going to be able to deal with this sorts of things. Go to Josh Heupel, and they may have this guy, but this is a lot to ask of a head football coach. That they may have this guy. I don't think they do at this point, but somebody needs to negotiate this stuff, because Josh Heupel, with recruiting, getting the team ready, all that he does, has too much going on. So Nico Iamaleava still on the team for Coach Caleb and Dave Hooker. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones.
All right, Caleb Calhoun. The thing is, Tennessee, however, if they decided that they were going to let Nico walk, would still be in a pretty good quarterback position with Merklinger and McIntyre coming in. There are a lot of teams that we would be jealous of having 2 4-star guys in-house, which Tennessee will have in addition to Nico this upcoming fall.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And I think that's one of the reasons you would consider letting him walk, because like I said, from a personnel standpoint, I wouldn't have thought it was that big of a deal. Not only would you have Nico and McIntyre, but Dave, I mean, there's a transfer portal window in spring. If you let him walk, then all of a sudden you have if you were to let him walk, you don't think a bunch of quarterbacks that are really elite would willingly try to get to Tennessee at that point, given what they know about Josh Heupel's offense and what he runs? And
I would have said that last year. I don't think it's as sexy of a pool as it was previously.
I still think there are some that would be interested, though. I could be wrong on that, but I think there are some elite ones. And look, I've said this. I don't think Josh Heupel needs the best quarterback to run his system. I mean, it helps, but I think there's certain things that they have to be able to do, and if they're in the right environment, they can put up gaudy stats. So
I will say this, though. I think the one thing that you didn't get out of Nico, and maybe it's just because he was a freshman, Caleb, I don't think you got the take charge leadership type of ability that you were hoping for. I think Nico's a great leader. I think he's more of a leader by example. but a leader by example, oftentimes at quarterback, is a little bit disappointing. I want my quarterback, unlike any other position in sports, to be a take charge guy. And we still don't know completely if Nico is that type of guy.
No, I'm totally with you. I've always felt that way. I mean, I don't want to go through the motions, do as you're told type of quarterback. I want a quarterback that's going to, purposely grab a team by the throat and say, we got to, just kind of push forward. And it is hard to see Nico in that light a lot of times, because he does seem to struggle with that concept of grabbing a team by the throat and taking them forward. And it's like, you're right. That's what you want from your quarterback a lot of times, more than any other position, even if they're not the best quarterback. And they don't have to they don't have to be Hendon Hooker, Peyton Manning, who were screaming, yelling in your face. You know what I mean? My understanding, and you may know more, but Hendon Hooker was a scream and get in your face type of quarterback, wasn't he?
Yes. No, he certainly was. Joe Milton was the type of quarterback that said, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't.
Well, I mean, you don't have to be, but there is a line. Like, I'm not even asking Nico to be Hendon Hooker, Peyton Manning, but I would say somebody like, again, a T. Martin, who was more, he didn't get in your face and get in your throat, but he definitely kind of led the team, led the offense. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think you just don't see that. You see too much of a do as you're told type of guy in Nico. And I don't want just to, your coaches doing that all the day. Oh, he does everything he's asked. It's like, okay, but I want him to do a little bit more than he's asked, honestly.
Yep. Fair enough. The show brought to you in part by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. You can use the promo code HOOKED and get 10% off. Hooked and get 10% off. I've decided to stop by and treat myself to a little bit of IV. I've been dehydrated lately. I'm going to Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. That's peakivhydration.com. If we can drop that in the chat. Dane Bradshaw is coming up in just 2 minutes. The show representative of Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksandjones.com. Live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Welcome back to the program. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Banks & Jones, com as oh, we're good with the bumper now. Having a little bit of technical issues, but we're good. Well, let's bring in Dane Bradshaw, who is absolutely fantastic on the television and other places, breaking down the Vols and the SEC. Caleb, if you can help bring him in, I would appreciate it. I'm having a little bit of trouble. Oh, there he is. I got him. All right. So Dane joins us now. We greatly appreciate that. We think. Dane, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir. I can hear you guys. A little background noise, but as long as you got me, I got you.
I got you, babe. Cher once said. All right, here, Dane. Let's get rolling. First of all, thank you for the time. We certainly appreciate that. You know, you're one of my favorites. Even though you like the Eagles, I do not hold that against you.
Well, yeah, I got some bragging rights on you, but I'll take the high road. So
You got a lot. I root for the worst, the Dallas Cowboys, the worst franchise in the NFL. You root for probably one of the top two. The Eagles are turned in the incredibly run organization. So kudos to you.
Well, we deserve it. Classy fan base, as you know.
Okay. Yeah, Michael Irvin couldn't move, and you guys are cheering, but that's fine. All right, Dane. This Tennessee basketball team, how different are they when Darlene Stone-Dubar is on as he was against Texas?
Yeah, he's got the ability to just get them out of some scoring slumps at times, and he's got big, broad shoulders. It's hard to figure out, Rick Barnes' offense and getting to that flow and his demands on defense. But he's starting to get it. So he's had a little bit of a different growth process. But I don't think they win at Illinois without him. They don't win at Texas without him. I mean, the timeliness of his threes have been huge.
And I know that he's had some personal issues. I don't want to get into that. That's his business. But do you feel like he's at a point in his life from people you talk to where he's able just to focus on basketball?
Yeah, I hadn't asked those questions in the locker room or in the film room type thing. All I know is they say, look, he's got a ton of potential, and once he starts to figure it out, he's going to be trouble. And I think they need that because of all the pressure that's going to be on Chaz Lanier. And I know the comparisons to Dalton Connect have been there, but as you guys know, they're two different types of players. And Dalton Connect, I mean, he just had he would take it to another level, especially on the road. I mean, he just embraced those moments and demanded the ball, and just had a little bit more of that mindset that they're trying to get out of Chaz Lanier. And that's going to be hard to change. Chaz Lanier's a very unselfish star. And I think having an additional scorer like Dubar is going to be extremely beneficial for him. But, and some of that could just be getting the lid off the rim. And, there was times I go back to two totally different players, but you just felt like when Tennessee teams would get in scoring slumps. I remember back in the day, it would be Lamonte Turner, kind of a six man, would come off the bench. It was like, man, when they needed a three, he just made big ones. And I don't know that Dubar is going to be in at the end of every game necessarily, but it just past couple times they've been on the road with their back against the wall, he's been unafraid to take those shots and not passive. And that's really something you can't teach. You either got it or you don't, and he seems to have it.
Dane, Caleb Calhoun here. You and I have a bit of a history, by the way. I was a freshman at Ridgeway when you were playing at White Station, and I was at that game where they turned the lights out on you guys about like 5 times every time y'all got on a run. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, man, yeah, that I do. I remember that, and we that was one of our 10 losses over 4 years. So I remember those losses well. There weren't many of them, but that was one of them.
Yeah.
Wait. What did they do again? Did they
every time White Station would go on a run, the Ridgeway gym would flip the lights off and like it calls it they'd have to do a timeout because the lights would go out. There was a quote unquote power failure.
It happened to happen twice. The timing of it, it was funny how it never happened after Ridgeway made a three.
Yeah.
It's so funny. We used to the more athletic schools, because we were just a bunch of rural kids, we would turn up the thermostat by about 8 degrees when the athletic teams would come in. That was our move, but we never turned the lights on.
Hey, it's home court advantage. I get it. That's a little bit different strategy, but we're good to talk to another Memphian, Caleb.
Thanks, Dane. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about we talk about Darlington, Dubar, Chaz Lanier, and all these guys. One of the things that kind of concerns me about Chaz Lanier, and I want to know your thoughts, is, I mean, we know that Rick Barnes benched him over the weekend because he didn't take a shot that was called for him. We know he's an elite scorer. Does he make you nervous that he doesn't necessarily have an assassin's mentality that's kind of needed for a scorer to say, give me the ball and everybody get out of the way if we need a bucket?
There's a little bit of that. And I tell you what, though, on the flip side, because I thought the best play in the game late was the Kai Ziegler made a driving layup with about, there was 4 seconds on the shot clock. He had 2 guys on him. Most people would settle for 3 and hoist it up, but he got all the way to the rim. But, like, if you rewind it a second or two before that, Chaz Lanier has the ball in his hands. And to your point, that's one where I'd like him to keep the ball in his hands and be like, hey, this is a big possession. I'm not going to pass this up. I'm going to take a contested 3. But because he was unselfish and just said, I don't have it, he gives it to Ziegler, and they end up getting a layup at the end of the shot clock. So on one hand, that's a positive that he didn't settle and just say, you know what, it's got to be me only. But I think, and even in the preseason, assistant coach Rod Clark raved about Chaz Lanier, and he said, look, I don't even think he knows how good he can be. And so there is a little bit of that. I mean, he was really good at North Florida last year, but prior to that, it's been what 4 years, I guess, of averaging about 4 points a game. So it's a little bit of a new position for them, but they'll get there. And look, it's just January, and coach is going to continue to improve these guys. I got a hard time believing that by March we're still going to be talking about Chaz Lanier not coming harder off those screens, looking to shoot. I think this is a temporary problem and part of his individual growth.
Okay, not to be total Debbie Downer on it, but going into the post a little bit with what about people like Igor and Felix Opera? So one of the things I noticed that was a bit of a difference this year, we know what Felix can do as an athlete and a scrapper under the basket, and we know Igor is a solid scorer, but does Igor strike you as someone who's able to get positioning and leverage under the basket to score? I know he can stretch the court, but it seemed like Florida just knocked him off the baseline every time last week.
Yeah, that's usually, I mean, posting him up against Florida's bigs probably isn't going to be a play call, but in those situations you can quote unquote post him at the elbow and let him take a taller big off the dribble. That's where he creates some mismatch problems, and he just finds a way to impact winning. I'm a fan of his. I think the fact that Dubar was shooting it so well last game had something to do with him not producing as much. But I remember I called the MTSU game and I asked their coach, like, hey, Milicic is struggling from 3. Do you still allow him to stretch the court and honor it? And they go, oh, yeah. Well, we're definitely going to get out on him because we've seen him at Charlotte. He shot it extremely well against us there. It's only a matter of time. So he's got the respect of the opponent. So that helps stretch the court. He rebounds like crazy. And if you put a smaller guy on him, then you can post him up a little bit down low. If you put a bigger guy on him, then it's probably best for him to kind of get it 10 to 15 feet away from the basket to try to take him off the bounce some. So just got to use that Swiss Army knife to your advantage.
That aggressiveness. I want to go back to Chaz here momentarily. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. I want to go back to Chaz and his approach to the game. Is something like that, hey, I'm going to be a scorer, I'm going to take the ball and take over the game. Is that just innate, or can you learn that? I'm going to use a little bit of a comparison. When I covered the Vincent Yarbrough teams, I know they always wanted him to be a little bit more aggressive, but it wasn't his nature. He's still a very good player, but it just wasn't his nature to be that kind of takeover guy. So is that innate, or is that something you can learn?
Yeah, that's a very interesting comp. You're dating yourself, but at the same time, I think a fair. I think Vincent was probably a little bit more laid back, and this offense is so much more predicated on constant movement that I think it's a little bit of Chaz Lanier. He's got to get some of that out of himself, but then there's other parts of it where it's going to be forced on them some through Coach Barnes, because they're calling for him, and the offense is again predicated on him coming off these screens. And I mentioned it on the broad. We there?
Yeah, you broke up a little bit. Go ahead. Can you repeat that, Dane?
Okay. Yeah, they were showing him clips of Santiago Vescovi and said, "Hey, look how hard he runs and how hard he cuts." And then we knew Vescovi had one of the best shot fakes in the league. Come off there, shot fake. They're going to have to jump at you. If they don't, let it fly. And so again, I think those things, despite him maybe not showing that natural killer instinct, it might not be a 10 out of 10 by the year, but I think it could be an 8 to a 9, which should be good enough.
I like it. Dane, are you going to be Mike Keith's partner as the color commentator on the Vol Network? Because you got my vote.
What a great day for Vol Network, and so fun to see the throwback images of Bob and Mike Keith and yesteryear versus now. It's just what an awesome deal, and a huge get for Danny White in the program. So excited for everybody, and a tip of the hat to Bob Kessling, of course. There'll be more celebration of his phenomenal career. He's helped a lot of people out, including myself.
Did you hear Dane not answer the question at all? Well, if you want
He didn't.
If you want it, Dane, I hope you get it. I hope nothing but the best for you.
No, I'm plenty busy where I am now, so I'm good.
All right, buddy, I got you. Have a blessed day. Thanks for taking the time. We greatly appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dane. I appreciate that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We have This Day in Tennessee Sports History, and today it's brought to you by our friends at Ted Russell Ford, Lincoln, Kingston Pike, and Parkside Drive, East Tennessee's #1 volume dealer when it comes to Ford and Lincoln.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
You know, that would be incredible. For camping, tailgating, the options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep boop beep bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
All right, Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history, you're staring at something intently. What do you have?
On this day, 16 years ago, Tennessee cracked the top 5 of the coaches poll in men's basketball in 2008. It was their first top 5 ranking since 2001, which was when they hit number 4 and then had the epic collapse at the end of the Jerry Green year. I feel like I always somehow managed to reference that 2000-2001 collapse, Jerry Green's final year at Tennessee.
It was quite a collapse. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Tennessee has three coaches that are on expiring contracts. Does that mean they're close to making a change or announcing a raise? We'll get to that. It'll be hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. It's cityheatandair.com. More after this. Stay tuned as we'll talk Tennessee football coaches up next. Again, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios as the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
You know, that would be incredible. For camping, tailgating, the options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep boop beep bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Like this bumper music, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, they have the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. I'm close to my Bronco, and the buying process has been fantastic. All right. Let's get into hot or cold. Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. And Caleb, I want to turn hot or cold into this. And we use hot or cold, but it's razor boot, basically. So if you say hot, you're going to have to give this coach a raise. There are 3 coaches, 3 Tennessee football coaches on expiring contracts. So if we go hot, that means they get a raise, because everybody gets a raise just for staying around nowadays. If we say cold, that means you look elsewhere and maybe even replace that person. So let's get it started right now. And one of the coaches that we'll throw out there that I believe everybody would want to stay, Tim Banks. So hot or cold? I'm going hot, hands down.
I'm going hot too. Definitely give him a raise, keep him around. He's very hot. Again, you can question on how good of a defensive coordinator you think he is, particularly with the end of the season against Ohio State. But what I won't question is it would be extremely hard to find somebody of his caliber if he left.
I don't disagree with that. Outside linebackers and special teams coordinator Mike Eberle, hot or cold?
Hot. Way too much energy to let go. The return game has been pretty solid, and the outside linebackers, the edge rushers. I mean, I know you were critical of them this year in the way that they use the edge rushers, but I still think he's, Byron Young's in the NFL. James Pierce is going to the NFL, so I can't sit there and say cold. I'm going to go hot with Mike Eberle.
Well, I don't really think he's in charge of the edge rushers.
I considered outside linebackers edge rushers. I mean, do they really have a position coach just for the outside linebackers when they have 2 linebackers on the field at a time?
Yeah, I think those guys. I think those guys report to Garner. Yeah, I don't think Garner's teaching players to play back in space, and I don't think Eckler's teaching players to, rush the quarterback or stuff the run. So we're going to disagree on this a little bit. I know his energy and everybody likes him. It reminds me of Trooper Taylor, how everybody loved Trooper Taylor. But Trooper Taylor had a lot of substance to him. He had style, but not substance. Mike Eberle would not be a a lock on this coaching staff because I haven't seen the special teams do much. I think they got lucky with Keenan Pili, who would have been very, very solid. Then they got unlucky because he got hurt twice. But Caleb, I'm going to go cold on this. I'm not necessarily showing him the door, but if I feel like there's somebody better out there, I'm not going to hesitate to make a move.
Interesting. See, I still look at the special teams, and I think the special teams has been very solid for Tennessee.
Solid. And you know what? We may be in this day and age where it's never fantastic because of all the rules. And you'll probably see a similar type of goofy kickoff return sort of thing like they do in the NFL eventually in college. Now, Willie Martinez, hot or cold? What do you think of Willie Martinez, who has come under an absolute ton of scrutiny during his time at Tennessee? Get your thoughts. Brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
All right, Willie Martinez.
Cold. Partially because I know where he focuses. He focuses on safeties, and I don't think the safety play, even if the cornerback play was better last year, I wasn't blown away by the safety play, and I don't think you were either, Dave. Even with
but I'm going hot after he was part of a coaching staff that put together a really solid secondary, and I'm going to bring recruiting into it. And there are times in which you'll take a coach that is a good recruiter or a great recruiter and an okay coach. That's probably Willie Martinez. Given his history. Go ahead.
I have to go back to this then. Are we so sure that the secondary was solid last year, or did they just play some really bad offenses?
Well, I mean, you could say that. Did they have an explosive offense just because they had big games against Kent State and Chattanooga? Yeah, the schedule is very goofy. There's no question about it, and they're going to have to deal with that. But I'm not willing to say that just like any other school, because let's face it, almost every school has some just low-level opponents on their schedule, which inflates numbers. So I'm going to have to take it as a whole and grade him in that regard. Now, the thing is, you know what sounds crazy? In 2022, what did we say? We said that Tennessee's offensive staff was very good and the defensive staff was questionable. That has completely flip-flopped in 2 years. I think you'll agree. Tennessee has a better defensive coaching staff than an offensive coaching staff. And I'm putting Josh Heupel on the offensive side.
You might be right. I mean, it's hard to debate.
I don't think it's close. I don't think it's debatable.
Well, I mean, let's think about this. There are questions raising about Glenn Ellerby because nobody out of high school has started for Tennessee yet on the offensive line that they signed out of high school. We're hearing rumors about Kelsey Pope. All right, let's give Darrell Sims some credit. I mean, I know you think running backs are running backs, but he did. I mean, whatever else you want to say, Deion Sanders was SEC Offensive Player of the Year when Darrell Sims got to Tennessee. I don't know how much that means, but
okay. Let me ask you this: do you remember who the running backs coach was when they had Cobb, Webb, and all those guys? Do you remember who the running backs coach was when they had Kamara and Hurd, which were a good combo? I mean, really, running backs coach?
Well, I remember one. I remember one distinctly, by the way. I remember when Trooper Taylor replaced Willie McCorvey as running backs coach, and Tennessee immediately had 2,000-yard rushers in 2004 with Gerald Riggs and Cedric Houston.
Well,
and
good call. Good call. That's a memory. Should Vols have let Nico walk after their family demanded more money? Yes, spend NIL money elsewhere, 57%. No, he's too good. Now I'm going to change that up. Should Vols make coaching changes? So if you were Josh Heupel, would you make a coaching change with your current staff, or are you good where you are?
By the way, real quick correction. It's Woody McCorvey, not Willie McCorvey. I shouldn't have said that. I apologize for getting his name wrong. But correct. Okay, so you're asking if Josh Heupel should make a change with his staff. This goes back to our takes last week when we talked about it. I wouldn't make any changes because of the guys under contract. I wouldn't waste my time making changes on the defensive staff just for cohesion, because that's all defense. Because the issue now is he needs to upgrade his offensive staff. And if you're going to upgrade your offensive staff, then it's probably too expensive to go out and find new players for new assistants on your defensive staff. Because even if you let a coach walk, I mean, Dave, let's talk about it. You got to spend money to do a search to find the right guy, right? It's not like that's free. It's like any company. You hire a new person, that the hiring process costs money. Yep. So
you're probably going to pay them more.
Yeah, exactly.
You were paying the last guy. As a matter of fact, I can't remember 100%, but I'm pretty sure Trooper Taylor came in making more than Woody McCorvey. Now, you bring up the other question, which I think we definitely need to address, brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. That's hdknoxville.com, hdknoxville.com. Cohesion, chemistry, culture, how does that fit into it? In other words, if you're 50-50 over whether or not you want to keep a coach or potentially upgrade at that position, which are you doing? I think you kind of answered it as you would handle it, and I'm the same. I'm not going to make that move unless I feel confident that I can bring somebody else in that's at a really high level, because my concern is affecting team culture. Man, I got to be honest with you. I'm not sure what Alec Eberle or Joey Halsley brings to the table. Those would probably be the first two guys on my radar if I was going to make a change, but that's not going to happen. They're Josh Heupel's boys. He brought them up. I didn't mention Kelsey Pope, but I could make an argument that Tennessee could do better than that. Overall arcing thing, culture is a factor, but when you really look at each and every coach on Tennessee's staff, other than Banks, Garner, and Heupel, nobody blows me away.
Yeah. I mean, well, so you said Banks, Garner, and Heupel. I like William Ing, the linebackers coach. He just brings a lot of experience to the table.
Linebackers have been horrible.
Well, they were better this year than they were last year when Keenan Peele went down. Put it that way.
Well, that's because they didn't have depth. I mean, he didn't do anything to help this year.
I think he had Jeremiah Thielander ready to be serviceable.
He just needed Jeremiah Thielander to have another year under his belt. I mean, Thielander's got a high football IQ. He was going to figure this stuff out eventually, and he's going to be even better this year, a potential all-SEC player. I give Inge very little, if any, credit for that. I mean, and this is not a complicated defense from the linebacker position either. So sorry, I'm not buying what you're selling on that one.
I'm just going based on his experience and his track record before he got to Tennessee, to be fair. He does have a decent track record of experience, so I have to believe some of that. But you're right. I mean, the guys that matter are Heupel, Garner, and Banks. Keep those three, and everybody else is somewhat interchangeable. I'm not as low on Kelsey Pope as you are, because I still know what he did with Cedric Tillman. And I can't ignore that. I don't know if he has managed, I guess you could say wide receivers do have egos, and they should. I don't know if he's managed egos well, and maybe that's the issue with him right now. But and that's hard to do given. Look, let's bring this up. I think a mistake with the wide receivers last year, Dave. I don't think they had a set 3-man rotation. And I didn't like the concept of they kept rotating guys in and out, going 4 or 5 deep. I think that makes it really hard to get a rhythm. Again, that's the best thing David Cutcliffe did when he returned to Tennessee, and you probably remember it. Everybody talks about what he did with Eric Ainge. I never looked at that in 2006. The thing that stood out to me was David Cutcliffe stepped in and said, Robert Meacham's our go-to receiver. Jason Swain's going to be our complimentary guy on the other side, and Brett Smith is our slot guy. That's it. That's as deep as we go, because Randy Sanders was running 7 guys, it felt like, the year before in 2005, and nobody got in a rhythm.
Yep.
And I think that Kelsey Pope was trying to manage some egos last year, and they ran too many receivers out there too often. I think they should have been totally locked in of saying Brew McCoy's our go-to. They couldn't pick between Chris Brazel and Dante Thornton on the other side. I think they had trouble trying to figure out who they wanted to be their three-man rotation, and that caused problems.
Okay, in the end of the day, would you make any changes that's hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. CityHeatandAir.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your best. All right, Caleb Calhoun, would you make any changes if you're Josh Heupel? Yay or nay?
Yeah, to my offensive coordinator. Sorry, I don't think Josh Heupel has another voice in the room, and it's hurting him. I think Josh Heupel's – let's call it what it is, man. Josh Heupel is a good coordinator. He's a good coach. Like a lot of coaches and a lot of people, he thinks he's smarter than he is, though. And he's a little bit of an egomaniacal in the sense if he thinks his way works no matter what, and he knows what he's doing. And again, I've told you guys the only coach I ever felt that was that way and that was right was Steve Spurrier, who actually did think I'm smarter than every other coach. It doesn't matter. And most of the time he was right. But most coaches are not that way. And I think Josh Heupel thinks way too highly of himself.
I'm close on Martinez, but I wouldn't because of the recruiting ties, which from covering recruiting, I can tell you are very significant throughout the South. He's been an SEC coach a long time. So, especially since Banks has tended to focus in his career on defensive backs, I would lean towards keeping Willie Martinez thanks to the recruiting ties. Now, with Eckler on the expiring contract, if I saw somebody out there I think would just be a massive upgrade, maybe, but no. Tim Banks is on an expiring contract. I'm definitely keeping him. The changes I would make, thank you, Timothy, for the super chat. That'll pay for Quincy Calhoun's college fund one day if Caleb doesn't gamble it away. We'll see. But here's what the bold question is. Should Vols make coaching changes? Fire Willie Martinez, fire Mike Eckler, fire both. Everyone stays. 47% of the vote. So you don't have as much of a problem as some people do with Tennessee, pardon me, and where they are with their entire coaching staff. So that surprises me a little bit that people wouldn't want to make a change. Now, I'm going to change it a little bit because now we've kind of flip-flopped this thing. And I'm just going to say, should Vols make offensive coaching changes? If you were Josh Heupel, what changes might you make? Because I can tell you he's not going to make any because he wants to be the cook in the kitchen, the only cook in the kitchen. So I can tell you it's not going to happen, but it's fair to talk about.
So you're asking me what offense? Well, I was talking about the offensive changes earlier. That's why I said get rid of Joey Halsley.
Okay, so you're not saying you would think about it. You would do it.
I'd get rid of Joey Halsley. I don't even know if Joey Halsley's a bad coach. I just think there needs to be another mind in the room that's separate from Josh Heupel. And Josh Heupel has his own clone in the room right there, and I don't think that's helpful at all. It's kind of like, and you can look through history, the least successful presidential cabinets are typically ones where they bring all like-minded people into their cabinet and nobody in to challenge their worldview on anything. And it ends up costing them. And so
it's kind of like when Nancy Reagan was the president and Ronald was in no shape to fight her on things. Which I think that was pretty much the case the last 2 years.
Yeah, but Bush Sr. was also in the White House and he had a different perspective than the Reagans did. So but I get your point. Yeah. It's and many of the presidents, the most beloved presidents in American history are typically like if you look at them, you will always hear that there was somebody in their cabinet that was in their ear pushing them to go the certain way that everybody wanted them to go.
I enjoyed it when we had President Cheney as well. Should the Vols make offensive coaching changes? Yes, Joey Halsley. Yes, Kelsey Pope. Both or neither. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. BanksandJones.com, as we're live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer.
Hey Ted, it's time to save some cash to our New Year's bash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
Welcome back. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Let's turn our attention to, I guess we'll kind of stay a little bit on the coaching staffs last year, but in particular the players. Tennessee's without Deion Sanders, who was arguably their best player last year. Would you say he was Tennessee's best player last year?
Yes.
Okay. Then they'll be without Cooper Mays and Javontes Spraggins, who have moved on to the NFL. So my question is, who do the Vols miss most? Our poll question is up as well. If you want to take part, I'll update that here momentarily. Should the Vols make offensive coaching changes? So will Tennessee miss Deion Sanders more, or the combination of Cooper Mays and Javontes Spraggins? What say you, Caleb Calhoun?
This is nothing on Cooper Mays and Javontes Spraggins because they were the best interior run blocking duo in the SEC for the past 3 years. But I'm not going the dually route where you'd rather have a special back than a special offensive line. I'm not going that route. But I am saying that it's harder to replace an extremely special back than it is 2 very good run blocking offensive linemen, I think. And I think Deion Sanders had, and I say this as someone who was way out on him at the beginning of last year, I think he showed rare abilities that an average running back just can't replace. And we saw this during the season because Peyton Lewis, who I was high on, wasn't matching Deion Sanders' production when he was in the game. Neither was Deshaun Bishop. And you saw that Deion Sanders was in a class of his own with what he was able to do and how hard he ran. And because of that, I think they're going to have a harder time replacing Deion Sanders than they will Cooper Mays and Javontes Spraggins.
Completely disagree. If they had Mays and Spraggins this year, I think Tennessee would have one of the better running games in the entire SEC because I think Peyton Lewis is going to be really good. I think he would have been really good last year. I think there's a tendency not to play guys early at Tennessee, which isn't real grand. Timothy, I saw your super chat. We'll get right to that. But listen, Deion Sanders has an innate ability to find holes. He does. There's no question about it. He sets up his blocks as well as anybody I've seen since Travis Stevens. I think they're similar, but I think that Travis Stevens is kind of a poor man's Deion Sanders. He's not quite as talented. He's really good, shifty, and all that, but they're somewhat similar type of running backs. Deion Sanders was great at that. But did Deion Sanders wear down defenses with power? Did he scare them with his speed? No. I think he was in every regard, including ball handling, which he had a couple of fumbles or 3, I believe, this season. I think he was a B player in everything. I don't think he was elite in any one thing. I think Peyton Lewis is going to be elite for a couple of different reasons. I think he's going to pound on defenses, wear them down, and then I think he's also going to have the ability to break the big one. So if they had Mays and Spraggins back, I think that Tennessee would have an incredible running game. They don't, but Peyton Lewis, I believe, will make Tennessee's running game significantly better. If Deion Sanders, and Deion Sanders and Peyton Lewis came in the same class and they were both seniors last year, I think Peyton Lewis would have been the leading rusher.
You know, I'm the one who thought Peyton Lewis was going to take Deion Sanders' job. I can't go there now. I mean, Deion Sanders just set the rushing record and the rushing touchdown record in the same season. And what struck me was his vision was so incredible. Peyton Lewis, I was a little disappointed in his vision. It wasn't Cam Seldon level vision, but there were still some issues.
You got to cut him a little bit of slack as a freshman. I mean,
but then but his elusiveness was also not where Samson's is. And I mean, that's what really stood out. I mean, Deion Sanders literally, like, he's what Alvin Kamara should have been when Kamara was playing at Tennessee. And I didn't buy into the whole Deion Sanders, Alvin Kamara narrative. Fred White actually brought it up first. He nailed that. I mean, this was 2 years ago going into 2023. Fred White mentioned 2 name sets. Remember, Dave? It was James Pierce and Deion Sanders. Boy, did he hit it out of the park with both.
Yep.
And yeah.
Who will Vols miss more? That's the poll question. Deion Sanders, 62%. Javonte, 62%. Javonte Spraggins, Cooper Mays, 38%. I also think you're forgetting a little bit too much about the fact that Tennessee went to Florida with a much better team in 2023, and without Cooper Mays, looked like hot garbage. So I do think we need to, and I say that supporting your point, but let's not forget that we've seen real time Cooper Mays help lead the Vols to a big win over a good team, whereas on the flip side, we've seen them struggle against an average team. And Caleb, that was not good. That look was not good. I believe with William Satterwhite, they'll have a better answer. I'm assuming with Umarov and some other guys that they have that they've got somebody ready for Javonte Spraggins. If they don't, then yes, I mean, you're absolutely right. But you do have to move on. You'd love to have Cooper for 20 years. But as good as he is, you do have to move on. I hear a lot of positive things about William Satterwhite. In fact, more than any other current offensive lineman that's out there as far as guys that could fill key roles. The other thing that we have to factor in, too, is this probably puts a little bit more on Nico Iamaleava. Cooper Mays is in charge of setting up the blocking schemes and doing that. And now I don't know that Satterwhite is going to be as good at that, but I think he's going to be a good player. Timothy had a super chat he wanted to throw out there. So let's go ahead and address that really quick. Is it true that Nico's dad told Heupel to quit doing 12 personnel to throw more? Is he dumb? You can throw out of any formation. I can tell you that the Nico's family did not like the 12 personnel, did not think they were throwing the football enough. It wasn't just an NIL issue in the offseason. It was a little bit more than that, which that's a little bit scary to me, Caleb. You don't want parents that involved, especially when you had a running football team last year. I thought they could have done more with the receivers, but yeah, you had those guys that were continually banged up. And I think that Brew McCoy, the go-to guy, was kind of a shell of himself. Listen, if it's not for a hamstring to Dante Thornton, if it's not for the shoulder injury to Squirrel White, Brew McCoy banged up as well, they would have thrown the ball more. But that was a running football team last year, and for good reason.
Yeah, and I thought about that too. It's funny you say that because, like, if they did throw the ball more, you got two tackles playing on sprained ankles and receivers who can't get open. How many times do you think Nico would have been hit? He would have been wrecked last year. And but so Dave, I kind of vacillate. I go back and forth because I'm going to say that, and then tomorrow I'm going to say, well, but Nico's also the $2 million man, so he should be able to find a way to make guys get open and throw guys open and, be able to do something anyway. So where do you land on that? Do you land Nico was just limited because of the injury surrounding him, or it shouldn't matter? Nico should have been able to grab everybody by the throat and carry them because he's Nico and he got $2 million.
No, I think what you first said. I mean, the offensive tackle issue was a big deal, and I believe that ultimately undermined the beginning of his season, and he was never completely comfortable, even when they got better, until November-ish. So I think it was that. I think it was the offensive tackle issues and the injuries there, and that's why Nico was not the player that we expected. I think that's the primary reason. If I pick one reason, it's not Nico. It's not running 12 personnel. They did that because they had to. It's still the offensive tackle issue. We sound like a broken record, but we've been saying that for months.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The offensive tackles were an issue, which, by the way, Cooper, getting back to the Samson running game point, Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins, them leaving or coming back doesn't fix that issue. It just adds and compounds more issues. So that may fuel your point of who will they miss more, but I just think that Samson is so special of a running back that, put it this way, let's go back to the Derek Dooley argument that I know you made your head explode when he said you'd rather have a good back than a good offensive line, which was like insane that he said that. However, are there some backs that you would say are so special they kind of outweigh the value of a elite offensive line, or is that ever the case? Like, there's LaDainian Tomlinson. Like, would you take him no matter what offensive line you had?
The only guy that fits in that category, because I saw it with my own eyes, was Barry Sanders. He had a horrible offensive line throughout his career, but made things happen. It also made him dance around a little bit too often when he could have gotten a tough 2 or 3 yards. So as successful as he was, Caleb, I'm going to say no. I just don't. I don't think the best back in the world can make an offensive line go from bad to okay to even good.
Okay, that's a fair way to look at it. I probably lean on you. I would have said maybe Adrian Peterson during his time in Minnesota too. There were a few years where he had a really bad offensive line.
That's fair. And he's the type of guy that could flip it. But I'm an Emmitt Smith guy. I don't think that Emmitt Smith could run behind a bad offensive line and be a Hall of Famer. I think he would have been very good still. It would have been a back that maximizes runs, but not quite the same. Quality Tire Pro, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. Go to qualitytirepros.com. That's qualitytirepros.com. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why settle? banksandjones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still trying to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
We encourage you to check us out wherever you may get your podcast. Like, subscribe, leave us a review. We appreciate that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys, banksandjones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. All right, let's get to Tennessee's opponents for the upcoming season. Suddenly, there's no Jalen Milroe. Suddenly, there's no Carson Beck. Tennessee will face a new bevy of quarterbacks this year, and I'm curious if that's good for the Vols, or do you think that those two programs and others, I know you mentioned another one at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting, do you think the Vols will upgrade? I'm sorry, do you think the Vols' opponents will upgrade? Misspoke there, Caleb.
I was muted the whole time, wasn't I?
Yes,
I
you
didn't
were.
even realize I did. Okay. So, wow, Dave, you just let me talk too while I was muted. Dave was just like laughing probably the whole time. And like,
No, I wasn't laughing. We're having some other technical issues with my soundboard, so I didn't know what was happening. Go ahead, Caleb.
I apologize, guys. Okay, so looking through the list. Okay, yeah, so we're looking at is Tennessee's situation better or worse with schools changing quarterbacks? I'm going to go down the list of the SEC schedule. Georgia's the first SEC game, September the 13th. It's a concern for Tennessee to have Georgia not return Carson Beck because these are case-by-case bases here. Why is it a concern? I don't know if Georgia's going to upgrade at quarterback, but if they don't, they're going to upgrade everywhere else with the extra NIL money they just got. And so I think that's part of it.
Better or worse without Carson Beck?
Just with or without Carson Beck, blindly not knowing who the quarterback would be coming in, just putting in an average quarterback, I would say, and everything else stays the same, I would say they're worse. But I don't think they're going to be worse because I think they're going to get more talent around whoever the next quarterback is, and I think the next quarterback's going to be fine. So I think with all that, and there'll be chemistry. The chemistry will be better. I think Carson Beck was a chemistry issue for Georgia.
That, and I didn't like his arm at times. Now, I've been told that it was a little banged up, but chemistry issues, and I saw an arm that wasn't nearly as strong as I thought it would be. So to me, that would be the differentiating factor. And but ultimately it's the chemistry issue. I'm all for guys making money, but listen, if you are bragging about your Lambo when your offensive guard can barely afford a Hyundai, That's not the way to go about things.
No, it's not. And it was very problematic that he did that. So I think they're better. Going down, let's see, Mississippi State. I don't think that matters. I think Tennessee's beating Mississippi State no matter what. Arkansas and Knoxville, I'm telling you guys right now, and Dave, you probably could speak more to this than me. They're not losing that game to Arkansas at home. They're not going to let that happen.
No, I don't gamble. That's the one that I would gamble on.
Alabama losing Jalen Milroe. Guys, be concerned. I said last year that, look, I'm going to tell you what Kalen DeBoer did with Jalen Milroe. It's similar to what Josh Heupel did with Joe Milton. Kalen DeBoer did not like Jalen Milroe for his offense. He didn't. But Jalen Milroe had the team. The team loved him. And Kalen DeBoer, his first year at Alabama, didn't want to lose the team. So his whole philosophy was, I'm going to stay afloat. Let me just stay afloat and try to manufacture 8 to 9 wins out of Milroe his first year at Alabama. Maybe with luck, I could get us to the playoff, and then I'll get my quarterback in. I think with Ty Simpson or whoever else he's got coming, whoever else he's looking at, he's going to have his guy next year. And I think that's kind of scary because, Dave, you've seen Kalen DeBoer with the right quarterback. I mean, he turned Michael Penix Jr. into a Heisman contender and an NFL draft pick. And so I think Kalen DeBoer, when he gets his quarterback in, Alabama's going to be a lot scarier this upcoming year than they were last year.
I'm with you on Jalen Milroe. I don't think he was a good fit. I almost think if they just get a slightly above average quarterback, that's a good fit. Whereas Jalen Milroe is probably an A+ athletic quarterback. I think they'd be better off with a guy that's a better fit for their system. So I'm with you on Jalen Milroe, but I think that Carson Beck being gone makes Georgia better too. So as strange as it sounds, I'm going to go ahead and say bank on it. Tennessee's 2 key opponents, Georgia and Alabama, will be better at the quarterback position than they were last year with 2 guys that were considered all SEC type of guys before the season began. Bank on it.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
All right, so do we agree? Because the poll question is up now, and that is this. Vols are better off with Beck and Milroe gone. Yes or no? Now, the thing that we have to keep in mind is we don't know. We know Gunnar Stockton. We know he's pretty good, and I think he's similar to Carson Beck. If he's a better leader, then he'll automatically be better. Do we know what Jalen Milroe is going to do at quarterback?
Do we know what Jalen Milroe's replacement's going to do?
Alabama's going to do at quarterback. Excuse me.
We do not know right now. I believe right now they're looking at Will Keelan, Ty Simpson, and Keelan Russell, Ty Simpson, and Austin Mack are pretty much in the race right now. Keelan Russell, I think they are all guys who signed with Alabama directly out of high school. So it's people that Keelan Russell is a 5-star out of Texas, is in the 2025 class. He's the one that Kalen DeBoer specifically went after. Ty Simpson was the guy that Nick Saban went after and brought in the Notre Dame offensive coordinator a couple years ago to try to work with him, and it just didn't work out. Austin Mack, on the other hand, followed Kalen DeBoer to Alabama. He transferred from Washington. So he does have experience playing for Kalen DeBoer. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's between Austin Mack and Keelan Russell, and either of those could work out because Ty Simpson didn't work out. I just don't think Ty Simpson's cut out to play college football. I think he was overrated coming out. Coach's son out of Chattanooga. Isn't it Chattanooga or was it Martin? I forget. But yeah, I'm not so sure he's cut out for the college level, but they're going to get their guy and they're going to be fine, guys. So the next scary one, though, Dave, is we didn't bring him up, but Oklahoma. Oklahoma ditched Jackson Arnold. They went for John Mateer, who transferred from Washington State. He was a 3,000-yard passer last year. And they also got Kevin Concepcion, the NC State wide receiver. My question with that, though, is Should Tennessee really worry about that, or is that going to be one of those things where, put it this way, I got a question with you with Oklahoma. Are the quarterbacks bust there, or is the coaching just bad there that makes you look bad? Put it this way, the best analogy is all the actors in the Star Wars prequels get like crapped on for how they acted, but we realized that was George Lucas was the problem, not the actors themselves.
Okay. So I don't know that they have the offensive mind that they thought they did when they made a move to hire who was at
Seth Littrell.
Yeah, I don't think they got out of that what they thought they would get. I don't think that's a great offense. Listen, Jackson Arnold was rated like the third highest quarterback in his class. So yes, there are classic busts where it doesn't matter how you coach them, but you hate for him to get away and not be a high level player. I mean, you have to question the coaching to some extent, don't you?
To a huge extent. Absolutely. I think that's a big part of it. I mean, it reminds me of during the Tennessee decade of dysfunction, you saw guys that were total busts at Tennessee and then ended up being very successful in the NFL that really kind of made it stand out of, oh, they just didn't use them right at Tennessee. And yeah, you have to think Oklahoma's in that situation right now with their players. I mean, I still maintain that that's what happened to Jared Garantano at Tennessee. I mean, the guy does have NFL money for a reason. He was just so grossly misused in Knoxville because he was taking over. He was just leading Tennessee through a terrible situation during that period with Jeremy Pruitt.
Nope, completely agree. The show brought to you in part by our fantastic friend Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. Go to rickterryjewelry.com. That is rickterryjewelry.com. I also remind you, if you're in the Athens area, all you have to do is stop by and say, Dave Hooker said stop by, and you will receive an Off the Hook Sports t-shirt or a Celebrate 98 book. Completely up to you. And if you mention Off the Hook Sports, you can, check this out, save $500 on a spa, and it's going to include absolutely everything. Steps, cover lift, the whole 9 yards. Want to hear more about it? You should. Dynasty Pool and Spas in Athens, and they'll deliver it all to you.
Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount. Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com.
All right, let's talk a little Deion Sanders and how it may affect Tennessee. So I saw an interview recently that Deion Sanders said the only way that he would go to the NFL is if both of his sons were on the same team. Now, as we've seen with the LeBron James situation, doing so is not usually the best move, especially in basketball, because James is now in Bronny is in the G League, and he wasn't ready to play, and he was drafted too high because of his dad, and that's all neat and well and good. But ultimately, there is a real chance, no joke, that Jerry Jones absolutely loves Deion Sanders. He loves all of his former players to a fault. Don't be surprised, and the Cowboys are going to have a middle-of-the-pack draft position. Do not be surprised if they try to move up and take Shedeur Sanders, and then they get his other son later in the draft. If that were to happen, Caleb, yes, Deion would make the jump. Now, the fact that he's opened up the door means to me, you've got to go after him right now. You've got to go after those prospects right now, because he has opened the door himself. So it is time to go try to take advantage of that.
Yeah. So I think that, look, Deion is definitely going to be looking in the NFL soon. And Tennessee has a few players, Dave, that they recruited heavily that signed with Colorado. And you're right, now's the time to totally pounce.
Well, and I was just thinking of recruiting too, but it could be transfer portal as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So remember, Jordan Seaton, the guy who went on Undisputed Live and committed to Colorado, the offensive tackle, go heavy after him. Go heavy after Cam McHale, the other athlete that they were going after. These are two highly touted players that Tennessee wanted. And you could, and that's, Tennessee needs a wide receiver. They need some offensive tackles. That would be great pickups for them. The question is this. I don't think this necessarily applies to Michael, but it does apply to Seaton. You talked about yesterday, they don't want mercenaries to a certain degree. And Seaton strikes me as more than anything a mercenary, but not just a mercenary, Dave. I'm going to say this. The worst type of mercenary. The type of mercenary that takes a mercenary position but pretends he's doing it on some sort of principle. You know what I mean? So, like, Seaton picks...
I get it. I mean, I don't want to judge the kid necessarily. I mean, how has he turned you off and tried to...
Here's how he turned me off. Seaton picked Colorado because he specifically said, and we know that Colorado offered him the most NIL money. He specifically said he wanted to go play for a head coach that looked like him. Now, on the surface, I'm not criticizing somebody who wants to go play for a black head coach. If you want to do that, that's fine. But Colorado's not the only school with a black head coach. Stop lying. You picked them because they offered you the NIL money, and you made up that reason as a reason to go to Colorado to justify it and pretended you did it on principle. And so I'm like, just say you were a mercenary and did it for NIL purposes, which is fine.
Or say it's a super cool town and Deion's fun to play for, or a couple of different reasons. Yeah,
you didn't go because Deion's black. There's other black head coaches at more high pro. There were two in the Final Four of the College Football Playoff this year.
If Jason Sehorn, the only white cornerback that I've ever seen in the NFL, was the head coach of the Buffs, would Seaton have gone there?
I mean, if they offer the money, yes.
Do you remember Jason Sehorn?
I actually do remember Jason Sehorn, funny
the
enough.
The only man that I've ever seen blow two ACLs on the same play. On a kick return, he blew both of his ACLs. Oops. And,
oh my God.
And you never come back from that. He had like a 5-year borderline Pro Bowl type of career, and then it was absolutely over. All right, so we've done stat of the day or this day in Tennessee sports history. What have we done?
Oh, let's stick on this for a minute, but we've done this day in Tennessee history. But let's talk a little bit about poaching Colorado first, because so do you think they should go for Colorado players more or go for recruits that Colorado is targeting out of high school? Where do you think they have a better chance to pounce?
All of the above. All those kids just signed up to play for Deion. I mean, let me put the over under at 40. If Deion were to walk out the door tomorrow, would they lose over or under 40 and a half players to the transfer portal?
Oh my God. I'm going to go over. I think they lose over 40 and a half.
I absolutely am too.
I mean, and who would benefit the most from that? Do you think Tennessee would be the biggest beneficiary? I'm trying to think of, like, Tennessee was in for quite a few Colorado players. I just named two. Would they?
I don't think there's any one school that would benefit more, but given the fact that Deion is smart enough to recruit in the South because he knows that's where the best football is, I think that Tennessee would be right up in that top heap that could expect to get 2, 3, 4, 5 guys from Colorado. Now, as far as Colorado's current crew of commitments / signees, they rank 24th in the nation based off what I'm seeing. Well, no, let's hold on there for just a second because I may have it. 40th in the nation, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like they've got 4 4-star players. That's Julian Lewis, a quarterback who Tennessee wouldn't be interested in. Chauncey Gooden, Lipscomb Academy, Nashville, Tennessee. You would think they'd have a great shot at him if Deion bolted. And Tennessee could certainly use help in the interior of their offensive line. He's 6'4", 324 pounds, a 4-star player. When he signed with Colorado, I believe he was the 4th highest rated prospect in the state. Then you have London Merritt, who's out of IMG Academy. I think Tennessee could go after him. And he is a guy that is an edge rusher. Tennessee has ties to IMG Academy. I'm just giving you an idea of what Colorado has coming in now. They couldn't go get these guys immediately, or could they? I want to discuss that. Adrian Wilson, a 4-star out of Wise, Texas. He's a wide receiver. So technically, once you sign, you can't go. You have to spend a year there. Or do you? Basically, we've changed all the rules. If Deion Sanders left and Chauncey Gooden decided he wanted to sue the NCAA and that he didn't want to honor his letter of intent that was signed in early December, don't you think he could get out of that? It just feels like that the NCAA can't win in court.
Oh, I absolutely think he can get out of it. I think there's already stuff in place where if a coach leaves like that, you're allowed out of your letter of intent. I think that's already kind of established. So I'm sure they would do that then. I think the whole early signing period is so these kids that want to enroll in the start of the spring semester can enroll. But Dave, spring semester doesn't, well, it's probably already underway in Colorado, but I don't know if it ties with classes or anything like that. But, that would be the spring semester is does that matter anymore, Dave? Maybe I could be wrong, but like I remember distinctly, the whole story of Ed Orgeron calling the Tennessee players being like, "Hey guys, don't go to class."
Well, he was wrong on that. The rule back then was if you spend the night on campus. If you're okay, so these midterm enrollees, let's assume that's still the rule, then you can't get those guys until maybe they could transfer in the summer if they wanted to. But but again, all of these rules don't mean anything anymore, Caleb. I mean, that I had to look that rule up when that whole by the way, and I think that was did you realize that was like the 15-year anniversary on Monday of Lane Kiffin bolting in the middle of the night? Somebody texted me that. Maybe in the 14-year anniversary. It would have been the 15-year anniversary just a couple of days.
I think it was Sunday. Yeah, it was on Sunday.
Yeah,
because I was looking at it for this day in Tennessee history, funny enough, and I realized it was on a Sunday, so I couldn't do it.
Okay, so speaking of, we will have this day in Tennessee sports history.
No, stat of the day.
Stat of the day coming up. Sorry, we'll have the stat of the day coming up. And also Lane Kiffin is going after Nick Saban on social media. That never gets old. We'll have it next. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We're live in the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
That would be incredible. For camping, tailgating, the options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep, boop, beep, bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank. Life, made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Wow. Great music collection. What in the world are you picking? We're having a little bit of trouble with our production board, so we don't have our full elements. But I remind you, the show represents...
It's love music because we're about to do a segment on Lane Kiffin exposing young love on one side.
We're represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. All righty, Caleb Calhoun. Do we have some Twitter trolling by Lane Kiffin? Because that never gets old.
Yes, we do. Okay, so for those who don't know, Sydney Thomas, who is a social media influencer, which is basically, women who make money revealing themselves on social media.
Not necessarily.
Well, she is now a ring girl. Okay. So she was the ring girl for the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight that happened.
That was a disaster.
That was a terrible disaster. I agree. She said that recently an SEC coach slid into her DMs. Now, does everybody know what that means? I know we have some older viewers.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
May I tell you that one football coach, and I'm not going to say who it is, this is how the conversation went. I love having interns on. More voices, the better. I had this football coach on. She was on. She was cute, has a cute sounding voice, and I got a text. Hey, what's the deal with her from this coach? Okay. And by the way, this is T, in case anyone's wondering. So the next text I got was, what's her body? I said, yeah, she's cute. You can see a picture of her, and I sent him a picture because she was single. I was like, well, I like to make love happen. So this coach texted me back, said, well, that's just from the head up. You know how East Tennessee girls can be. What's her body fat percentage? It's hard to ask somebody that. It's really difficult to ask somebody that. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think HR might have gotten involved and fired me had I asked her that. But he then did, when I said she looks good, I don't know her percentage, he did then slip into her DMs, and they almost started dating. Now, I'm not going to say which coach that is, but there we go.
Is he hanging out in Destin right now? No. Okay, well, I love that story. Well, she says an SEC coach slid into her DMs. Well, then Sydney Thomas took a picture on the golf course with Nick Saban. And Lane Kiffin last night decided to retweet that picture and go, we have the answer. Roll Tide roll. Suggesting that Nick Saban was the one who slid into her DMs.
Now, Nick Saban, I've never heard anything like that. Very proud of his wife. He refers to her often. But I do wonder if you could be in any sort of position where you lose the competitive nature and all of that of football and what drives you, and you might try to fill that void with something. I'm not even joking. Fill that void with something else. I don't believe Nick Saban's doing that. I think that's a joke, but I don't know why exactly Lane would do that. Can we share the tweet? Do we have the tweet?
Oh yeah, I can share it real quick. This is here we go real quick. Let's see. Share and Lane Kiffin on next. Here we go.
A new poll question going up. Does Nick Saban have a girlfriend? We'll just put it like that. Go ahead. All right. So
is he cheating on his wife?
No. Well, maybe, you never know. Maybe they have a mutual agreement. Okay. So does Nick Saban have a girlfriend? Yes. Lane called him out. No. He is absolutely faithful to the wife that he's had.
Miss Terry.
Miss Terry. All right. No, he loves Miss Terry. Oh, come on. He's not going to stand. He's too smart to stand there in a picture with a girl that he might be hooking up with. No way. That looks. Yeah. No way.
By the way, Nick Saban is so detail-oriented, guys. If he was hooking up with another girl, we would never find out. He's the one guy that would cover all his tracks, right, Dave? He would think of everything.
Yeah, he's kind of the anti-Hugh Freeze.
He really is.
That's who I would say that he is. So does Nick Saban have a girlfriend? Our new poll question is yes. Lane called on him or called him out. No, Mrs. Terry only. I think it's Mrs. Terry only, don't you?
I know a lot about Nick Saban. It is Mrs. Terry only. Guys, there are about 4 coaches who are as moral, family-oriented as they claim to be. Nick Saban's on that list. I'm not saying Nick Saban's perfect. Nick Saban definitely would twist rules that would help him win games. I'm not pretending that he didn't do that. But, he is as devout Catholic as you can possibly be.
I think he goes to mass every day.
Is it every day? I thought it was every Sunday and Wednesday, but it could be every day. But he went to a mass and he had, and it was apparently when he first was in Tuscaloosa, he was going one every week, and apparently a bunch of people started going there, and so he had to go to a smaller one, a little bit more off the beaten path. But he's very, very religious. I love what Steve said, because my first thought went to the same thing. I'm Nick Saban and Bill Belichick have always been they're close. One's most successful in the college and the most successful in the NFL is the other. And I did think, is Nick Saban just trying to catch up to Bill Belichick here? Since Belichick has got that 24-year-old fiance. But yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm wide-eyed, but Nick Saban and Rick Barnes are 2 people that I fully believe would never, ever, ever cheat on their wives. I
tend to agree. They just they seem cut from the old school cloth, right?
Yeah, they do, and I think I think they're genuine about it. Most coaches, I don't. Even coaches that are married and stay married, most of them, I'm are still doing some stuff on the side. Now, my question is Lane Kiffin doing this from a winning perspective? Does this hurt his program when he does stuff like this, or does it matter because he's Lane Kiffin?
I think this is a little low down for Lane. I don't think you call out somebody's. I think you can have fun and all that, and see, Lane knows Nick Saban well enough where he knows that, at least we believe, that he knows he would never step outside of his marriage with Miss Terry. But, other people, you're telling me Auburn fans aren't going to use this 5 years from now? Yeah, he was always having affairs. She said one girl he was with after he retired. I wouldn't have gone down this road because it's hard to read jokes, understand what people might be thinking, Caleb, in a tweet. So I'm not a big fan of him doing this.
I'm probably not either. Once you invoke people's personal lives, the trolling goes a little too far. I'll say this. Auburn's got Hugh Freeze and Bruce Pearl as coaches. They don't need to talk about anybody whose coaches have extramarital issues between those 2. But I agree. I think
You have to admit, of all the coaches, Lane Kiffin has been kind of out there. He shared pictures with his 26-year-old girlfriend. He hasn't hit it. Somebody at the SEC Media Days came up to me a couple of years ago and said, I know you're close to Lane. We're hearing this. Can you help us out? Is this happening? And I said, I'm sorry. I don't want to be a part of this. Do I know if it is or not? Yes, but I'm out. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And but honestly, the most out there and the most outlandish was the young lady who sat behind Bruce Pearl for the majority of his first 2 seasons at Tennessee. That was previously with him at the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Milwaukee. Yeah.
Okay. That girl was not exactly a part of the support staff for the team, but perhaps a part of the support staff for Bruce. That to me was always the just absolute most out there thing that I've seen in the world.
Yeah, that was. And it's funny because Bruce and Hugh Freeze, what do they both have that are so similar? Hugh Freeze is Protestant Christian, Bruce Pearl is Jewish, but they both talk about their devout faith all the time. You always know, don't you notice, Dave, the ones that do it the most are the ones that are hiding something?
No. I mean, I'm not judging anybody's faith, but I know I've been around Bruce Pearl where he said, oh, look, free bacon, a Jew's biggest dilemma, and he ate the bacon. So
yes, but he doesn't present himself that way on social media.
Right. I'm just saying that.
Like, no, that's what I mean. It's fake.
I don't know. How serious is that in Judaism? Is that equal to murdering someone? I mean, I don't know.
It depends on the level. There's Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform Jewish. So it depends on what type of, what level of Judaism you practice. But okay, so, I think Lane's trolling. The reason I think it's a little low down is in this era of social media, and I think this has been going on for a long time, there is a disdain for people who hold themselves to moral standards because we all fall short. And so people like Lane Kiffin get promoted because it's like, oh, well, he's just honest about being a total sleaze. He didn't try to pretend to hold moral standards up. So, but I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, but okay, so go at some people, but Nick Saban is someone who I think does try to hold moral standards up. Is that fair to say that Nick Saban is actually on that list of coaches who tries to do it?
Yes.
As best as he can?
I definitely think so, yes.
And, that's why I think it's a little low down. Is I think we are now in the business of let's tear down everybody because there have been so many people that were fake upholding moral standards. The most obvious and egregious example, nobody we've spoken of so far is on this level, but I'm just saying the most egregious one was, Joe Paterno played his devout Catholicism up to the highest degree and, would sing victory with honor every time Penn State won.
Okay, but I will say this. I don't think people of that generation really believed that anybody would abuse a child. I think he probably wondered, and put that guy into just a Jerry Sandusky in a position to abuse more children, and that is criminal in my opinion. However, I think he's of the generation. It's like, nah, that's not really happening.
I think he's of the generation of
it looks weird, but nobody would do that. So I'm not saying I'm cutting Joe Paterno any slack. Don't get me wrong, but I do kind of get, because I'm older than you, I do kind of get where there are a lot of people that generation that just didn't believe it happened. Those sorts of things.
I could picture Joe Paterno just being like, Jerry, you been hanging around little boys? Kind of weird, man. And just go that far. But I don't know. The thing that gets me is Joe, the level that he went to cover it up when he threatened campus police officers, and there were threats all the way down to the janitorial staff of not exposing this, basically. And Joe Paterno was somewhat behind it of basically, there were witnesses throughout the program that, were low-level workers that were threatened with their jobs.
Absolutely. Take it a second if you can and hit that like and subscribe button. We want you to be a part of the program. Also, turn your notifications on so you can get the very latest. We've got a major edition that we're excited about. We also want to thank our brand new studio sponsor, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? BanksandJones.com. Also, want to thank our friends at Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations. Your home search has never gotten easier. Chat Mortgage with 2Ts.com. All right, this day in Tennessee sports history, what do you got? Are we student stat of the day? Why do I always get those confused?
I don't know, Dave. Are you high? No, I'm kidding.
Stoned as a bat. All right. Nothing I like doing more than getting high at 10:15 a.m., just rolling through the show. All right, Caleb, what do you got?
Until last week, and it did change last week after the Texas game, Tennessee had the SEC's leader in points per game and steal and assists per game. Excuse me. It was Chaz Lanier in points per game, and it was Zakai Ziegler in assists per game. Zakai Ziegler still leads in assists per game at 7.6. The closest to him is Boogie Fland at Arkansas at 5.8. So he's clearing the field in assists per game. Chaz Lanier is now second in points per game at 19, but just barely to Mark Sears of Alabama, who's got 19.1 points per game.
All right. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. The finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. In 2 minutes, how long are you okay with Tennessee being almost good? Stay tuned. More after this, represented by Banks & Jones from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
You know, that would be incredible. For camping, tailgating, the options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep boop beep bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Welcome back to the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. It is time for Bank on It here momentarily. How long are you okay with the Vols being almost good, almost great? However you want to define it. Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates at Sports Treasures TN on Facebook. Also want to thank the UPS store, Hardin Valley. The link's right down below, helping individuals and small businesses a wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated. If you can't, give me a second to tell you something about our friends at Work Trucks, because Work Trucks is absolutely phenomenal. Pardon me, all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that helps you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space you need. It's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracted about time, Work Trucks saves you time. Cargo vans and utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed. Pickup trucks, pardon me, of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Truck supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industry Work Trucks. They carry trucks that your business has to have. WorkTrucksLLC.com, downtown Birmingham, and they're also on Clinton Highway in Knoxville. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. That is Work Trucks. All right, Caleb has a fantastic column that is up on Off the Hook Sports now. How long are you okay with Tennessee being almost great or almost champions? Because I don't know that any team is going to dominate year to year. I think the goal is get into the playoffs, see what happens, and maybe you make a run and win one. But with the transfer portal, it's going to be really level. And you're not going to see teams like Alabama win multiple championships. I'm not ruling out that Georgia could do that, but that's about the only one. And I don't think Kirby Smart will win any more than one or two at Georgia, which 4 would be impressive, especially in this new era. So we're judging everything different. And I remember when the NFL did this, when they added free agency. Dallas Cowboys would have had 2 more Super Bowls, maybe 3, if it weren't for free agency. I mean, that team was absolutely loaded.
And crack.
Yeah. Their second stringers won the 3rd Super Bowl. A lot of those guys didn't even play in 92. I don't think that's going to happen in college anymore. So, Caleb, how long, and let's define great as making the national championship game, or do you want to define it as making the Final Four of college football, or winning it all? How do you want to define it?
I think great just means, actually, Steve Sullivan put it in perfectly, in the mix for a natty. So basically, at the start of every year, you know, when you watch those pregame shows and you see all these teams being named who could win a national title, Tennessee's not left out. And I think that's what being great means. So to get to the point, in the 90s, you know, during the Fulmer years, yeah, he won it in 98. Even though Tennessee lost to Florida 4 or 5 years in a row before then, no one ever thought, oh, Tennessee's not on Florida's level. It was just, why can't they beat Florida? You know, it was like, but I think everybody felt that Tennessee had national title caliber teams during those years.
I can't disagree with that. I mean, they were knocking on the door, and it wasn't until that 2005 slip that Tennessee ultimately started having to look around a little bit. So we're going to set it as the poll question, and it's brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike. I'll tell you more about them. How long are you okay with the Vols being almost great? 1 to 3 years, 4 to 6, pardon me, or as long as Heupel is around. In other words, you believe Heupel is going to win a championship at some point. So what about you? How would you answer that question?
I'm only on 1 to 3 years left now, because I think they need to be elite this year. I think they need to be elite this year and in the mix. I think that they opened an NIL checkbook for Nico Iamaleava. And I'm saying, if you open your checkbook for a player like that, you expect that player to take you to certain heights and then be able to keep you there. And if they're not there by this year, that's a problem. This is Nico's 3rd year in the program. And so, I mean, I don't understand how we can sit there and NFL teams don't get that long to build. NFL teams have, I mean, Dave, you just talked about your Cowboys. They won the Super Bowl by year 4, right? It was year 4.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not saying win the national title by year 4, but you got to be in the running. You got to be at the beginning of the year saying, all right, we're circling, hoping to win a national title. I don't see why they can't be that this year. If they can't do it this year, excuse me, then how long do they get? How long do they get to say, oh, we're rebuilding, everybody does this, and it actually drives me crazy about college sports and pro sports for that matter. Everybody always thinks about being excited about the future, and no one ever says, why isn't the future now? And so, I mean, I think this is just a common, and here's what I think it is, Dave. It's very easy to think about the future because you can make excuses for losing in the now. I mean, Butch Jones, is allowed to be like, hey guys, look at what we got happen in long term. Everything's going to be okay. We're just building here. It's like, you don't get to keep saying you're building. After a certain point, you got to start winning. And I got to be honest. Look, Tennessee made the college football playoff this year. They lost to arguably the best team in the college football playoff. But Dave, did you really see them as in the mix for the Natty this year? Because I didn't, even though I predicted they would be. If you did, then they're already arrived. They've already arrived.
Yeah, I think they just faced the best team in Ohio State. So I cut them a little bit of slack for that. But Caleb, were they in the mix? I mean, in the mix to me is making the college football playoff. And I think they will be in the mix to make the college football playoff. Will they be truly in the mix to win a championship? Those are two different questions. But I believe they'll be in the mix to make the college football playoff. Therefore, I'm going to have to say this, Caleb. I'm going to have to say that as long as Josh Heupel is around, I got his back, because I believe that if things continue to stagnate on offense, that he's willing to make coaching changes. I don't know that, but I think this year is going to be a determining factor. Maybe that's a topic for tomorrow. If the Vols offense doesn't take a major step up, it is time to look at some other offensive coaches. Last look brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
The first step to better vision is to visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at CCTI.
All right, so there we go, Caleb. Your thoughts? Is this?
I want to address Timothy's super chat because appreciate it, Timothy. He says, "Let's play devil's advocate here. Didn't we learn that we are saying that Tennessee is tier 2 in the hunt? It's always been Tennessee motto: don't have a creative coach and a disciplinarian like General Neyland." So I would have to agree with the first part that Tennessee is tier 2 in the hunt. They're not tier 1. They're a tier below. Can they get to tier 1? And shouldn't they already be expected to be there going into year 5? I would say yes. Now, as far as a creative coach and a disciplinarian, I'll start with the creativity part. Dave, how creative is Josh Heupel to this point? Because he had an offensive system, but does that necessarily lead into creativity?
I think he had a creative system, but Caleb, I think a lot of people had a similar creative system, and I think we've seen the adjustments that have happened to this system. And that, to me, is something that's going to happen. It's time for Josh Heupel to adjust.
Yes, I agree. Because the system itself may have been creative and he may have adopted it, but we still don't have proof that he himself is creative now. Because you got to be creative to figure out how to work around, how to adjust the system to fit you. And you can't sit there and operate under the idea that no one's going to figure this thing out. You got assistants scattered across the country now running this offense. So that's going to have to be addressed.
No, I agree. And, this offense is popular. This offense is tough to stop when it's clicking. But without that, Josh Heupel looks like a much more above average coach than a great coach, doesn't he?
Yeah, I totally agree.
But I've got a lot of respect for the 12 personnel. I felt like that's what he had to do. And I felt like that was impressive that he had an answer for it, to be real honest with you. That to me absolutely means something.
I know you're high on that. And look, I'm not here to knock the 12 personnel, but the 12 personnel is also him making an admission that he didn't assemble the right roster for his 4th year on the job, because there were issues at tackle. and they didn't feel Nico was ready. And I'm like, why are these two things still a thing? Nico's been in the system for a year, and why do you still have issues at tackle your 4th year at Tennessee? And so I think that's what kind of stood out.
All right, give me an update on the poll question while I take a moment to tell you about our friends at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. I'm currently in the process of buying a Bronco, and I'm excited about it because we're going to wait until it's a good fit for me. There's no pressure. There's no rush. They've already told me what I should expect to spend, so we know about where I'm going to be. And if you want to stop at lot after lot and waste precious time, you can, but why? Ted Russell Ford Lincoln has perfected the buying process. I'm going with the Outer Banks model. Well, I think I'm still kind of looking around a little bit. I can look around there at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln because it's East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Whether it's partnering with local businesses or sending someone home in their first car, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln loves to be a part of special moments in East Tennessee. It's a pleasure to help people do that every day. Do yourself a favor. You want a fantastic vehicle at a great price and a smile on your face as you drive off the lot. Stop by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Kingston Pike and Parkside Drive. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, the exclusive vehicle provider and studio sponsor of Off the Hook Sports. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. I tell you what, Caleb, we're going to audible here just a second because there's something else I want to talk about. Let's take a quick 2-minute break. And we'll be back. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. It is banksandjones.com as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. Give me 2 minutes. We'll be back after this. Off the
Why
sports.
Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Welcome back. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. I thought I had a special recruiting guest for you. I do not. We will have that tomorrow. We're going to start to talk recruiting at the end of every program as this is a big month for the Vols. We'll see you at 10 a.m. tomorrow. It'll be Jimmy Himes joining the program. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. It is banksandjones.com. Live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.